This is Elliott's Conundrum. The scene was 1948. Elliott was working for a company in London, England, the Glacier Metals Company. Sitting in his office one morning, he was approached by a group of production workers. They came up to him and they said, "Doc," because that's what they called him, Doc. They said, "Doc, we have a question for you. We come to work every day dressed in our dungarees. We brush most of the dirt and grime off from the day before. We wear our safety glasses to protect our eyes. We have a hard hat to protect our head. Each day we come to work, we get our work orders and go out on the production floor. At the end of the day, we come off the production floor with our quota, and for that work we're paid a certain amount of money. Now over on the edge of our production floor, in an air-conditioned office, sits our engineering supervisor. We're not sure exactly what he does in there all day, but as we look through the window, we can see that he's also got a pair of dungarees like ours, but his are clean and pressed. He has a pair of safety glasses, but his are the designer safety glasses, and his hard hat doesn't have a single mark or scratch on it. Because the only time he puts it on is when he ducks his head out in the morning to count the guys coming in on the shift, and when he ducks his head out in the afternoon to count the guys coming off the shift with our quota. And for that work, whatever it is, he gets paid a certain amount of money. As a matter of fact, we know, because we know, that he gets paid more money than we do. And we were just curious, why? After all, we're doing all the work out here on the production floor. That was Elliott's conundrum. What is it that makes one person's role in the organization different from another person's role? So different that we might actually compensate it differently. I'll ask you the same question. In your organization, don't you pay your supervisors more than your direct labor? You pay your managers more than your supervisors, your vice presidents more than your managers. The question is why? What is the metric that we can use to measure to make that decision? I worked with hundreds of groups around the United States and asked that same question. And in the end, they all come up with things like market scarcity, one person supervises more than another person might, but very rarely do they come up with the metric, the scientific measuring stick that's universal not only from a company in 1952 in London, England, but to your company today. That metric turns out to be something called time span. Now the definition of time span is the length of time that a person can work into the future without direction, using their own discretionary judgment to achieve a specific goal. The length of time that a person can effectively work into the future without direction, using their own discretionary judgment to achieve a specific goal. Time span became the metric, the cornerstone for all of Elliott's research for the following 50 years. To illustrate this concept, if you can imagine that I'm the CEO, got a lot of stuff on my plate, got a lot of stuff coming down the pike. If I'm going to pay attention to this new stuff, I got to get something off my plate. So I select a project to delegate. I call one of my team members into a delegation meeting. I sit them down across the conference room table and I explain to them the vision of what it is I need them to produce with this project, the specific performance standards that they have to achieve, and the guidelines that they have to work inside of. Because you see, they'll have a budget for this project, but it's not an unlimited budget. They'll have access to some of our internal resources, but it's not unlimited access. I ask them if they have any questions, and they usually have 10 or 15 questions, which I dutifully respond to. But at some point, they stand up, say, "Foster, I think I got it." They walk to leave the room, but the instant they cross the threshold, they begin to work into what time frame? The future. Without my direction, because the meeting's over. Using their own what? Discretionary judgment to solve problems and make decisions to achieve a specific goal. Now, is it possible while they're out there working on this project that I might tiptoe out and peek over their shoulder? Of course, I'm a manager, I can't help myself. But while I'm peeking over their shoulder, do I expect them to give me the ball back? Do I expect them to drop the ball? Where do I expect them to carry the ball all the way to? To the specific goal. Now, is it also possible that they may come back to me with a clarifying question or two? But during that conversation, do I expect them to give me the ball back? Do I expect them to drop the ball? Where do I expect them to carry that ball all the way to? To the specific goal. Now, typically they will come back at some point with proud news. "Foster, you'll be very pleased. Almost exactly as you described in your vision, we met every single one of the performance standards and we stayed within the guidelines. So tell me, what's next?" Because you see, now they need something more from me. They need more direction. But what they've just established for that delegated task is the time span. The time span in which they worked into the future, without my direction, using their own discretionary judgment to achieve a specific goal. Time span became the metric, the cornerstone, for all of Elliott's research for the following 50 years.